My name is Elijah Thorne. I'm 67 years old. I'm a retired mechanic, and I live here in coastal Carolina. What I'm going to tell you today is about the coldest, most calculated decision I ever had to make in my life. It's a story of betrayal, vengeance, and justice that completely changed the way I look at people. You know that saying, the one that says you never really know anyone? Well, it's true. It took me 35 years of marriage to discover that phrase was more real than I ever imagined. And the worst part wasn't discovering the betrayal. The worst part was realizing I was the only fool who didn't suspect a thing. But let me tell you from the beginning, because this story needs to be told, right? So you can understand how a peaceful, hard-working man who never even raised his voice at home was capable of planning a revenge so perfect it still sends shivers down my spine when I remember it. If this story of betrayal and new beginnings touches a nerve in your heart, please leave a like for this old man. Subscribe to the Elder Chronicles right now so you don't miss the next stories I plan to tell with all the sincerity in my heart. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there now. Have you ever experienced betrayal in your own family? It makes this old man happy to know where you are and what time of day you're giving me all your attention. To really understand this story, I need to go back a little in time. Not too far, don't worry. Just enough so you can meet the man I was before that day that changed everything. The day a simple phone notification shattered 35 years of my life, but at the same time freed me from a lie that had gone on too long. That one message that popped up on my wife Gloria's phone screen hit me like a punch to the gut. But I didn't show it. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I didn't make a scene. You know why? Because in that moment, something inside me clicked. And what I did with that information was something even I never imagined I was capable of. I was born and raised right here, in this small town in coastal Carolina, a small borough where everybody knew everybody. My father ran a small forge, and my mother was a laundry woman. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Food on the table, clean clothes, and lots of hard work. From an early age, I learned that an honest man works hard and keeps his word. That was the education I got. I remember my father always saying one thing that was burned into my mind. Elijah, son, treat others how you want to be treated. Be a man of your word. Look people in the eye when you speak, and trust them until they prove you wrong. I carried that as law throughout my life. Look at the irony. I trusted the wrong person too much. We lived in a humble, 3-room shotgun house with a dirt yard where my mother raised chickens. The smell of strong black coffee first thing in the morning, mixed with the clang of my father's hammer, was my daily routine. I woke up before sunrise to help him in the forge. I learned to work with iron, with fire, with tools. I learned that things have to be done with care, with attention, with respect. I was a quiet boy, maybe too obedient. I never gave my parents any trouble. I got good grades in school without needing to study much. The teachers liked me because I was polite, respectful. But you know what I realize now? Looking back, I was too naive. I trusted everyone. I thought everyone was like me, that they had the same pure intentions. I had a schoolmate, Jamal, who was always borrowing things from me, pencils, erasers, notebooks. I lent them to him without a second thought. My mother would complain, "That boy is going to leave you with nothing, Elijah. Open your eyes, son." But I didn't listen. I thought I was helping a friend, until the day he took the watch my grandfather had given me and sold it to buy candy. I never saw that watch again. My mother was mad, but not at me. She was mad at herself for not warning me more. You have a very good heart, mijo, and that's beautiful, but it's also dangerous. There are people who take advantage of the kindness of others. I listened, but I didn't learn. It would take many years and much pain for me to finally understand what she meant. When I finished school, I didn't have the chance to continue my education. Things were tough at home, and I needed to work. My father was getting older, his back aching from hours standing over the forge. So, I started working at an auto shop in the next town over. I got up at dawn, caught the 5 a.m. city bus, and came back late at night. But I liked it. I liked understanding how things worked, fixing what was broken, and hearing the engine purr again after hours of labor. The shop owner, Mr. Sterling, was a serious but fair man. He taught me everything I know about mechanics. He always told me, "Elijah, you're good at the work, but you need to learn to charge a fair price. You do the work of 3 and charge the price of 1. That's no way to do business, boy." But I couldn't. I thought I was charging too much, that people didn't have the money. I always looked for a way to charge less, to do that extra little bit of work for free. Sundays were sacred at home. Early service at the AME Zion Church, a big dinner with fried chicken, collard greens, rice and peas, cornbread. My mother made a peach cobbler that was a blessing. After dinner, my father would take his nap in the hammock, and I would go play baseball with my friends in the local dirt lot. Life was simple, but it was good. I didn't need much to be happy. It was one of those Sundays after church that I met Gloria. She was standing outside the church, chatting with her girlfriends. Long dark hair, a wide smile, and eyes that sparkled when she laughed. I walked past and our eyes met. I felt something strange in my chest, a warmth, nervousness, but I didn't have the courage to say anything. I just stood there, looking at her from afar, like a fool. My buddy Tony noticed and laughed. "Come on, Elijah. You look like a lost puppy, staring at that girl. Go on, talk to her." But I was too shy. I spent weeks just admiring her from a distance, until one day I finally worked up the nerve. It was at the church bazaar. The town square was full of paper lanterns, stalls selling sweet tea and funnel cake, and a bonfire lit in the middle. And there she was, beautiful, in a simple blue cotton dress. I approached her, my heart pounding like it was going to jump out of my mouth, and I said, "Good evening, ma'am. My name is Elijah. May I have this dance?" She laughed, a beautiful laugh, and said, "Of course, Elijah. My name is Gloria." And it was there, dancing to the blues music under those paper lanterns, that it all began. The story that would last 35 years, the story I thought would last forever. But what I didn't know that night, dancing happily with that pretty girl, was that the same kindness and trust that made me lose a watch as a child would make me lose much more in the future, because I was about to build my entire life on a foundation that would one day crumble, and when it crumbled, it would be with a crash that would shake my entire existence. After that night at the bazaar, Gloria and I started dating. It was old-fashioned courting. You know, I went to her house every Sunday after service. I sat in the parlor while her mother watched from the kitchen. We talked quietly, exchanged glances, and when no one was looking, I'd squeeze her hand. It seems silly today, but that's how things worked back then. She lived with her parents and 2 younger brothers in a house that was a little nicer than mine. It even had a neat porch with potted ferns that her mother lovingly cared for. Her daddy worked for the county seat. He was a serious man of few words. At first, he looked at me with suspicion, but over time, he saw that I was hard-working, honest, and that I treated his daughter with respect. Gloria was different from the other girls. She spoke her mind. She laughed loud. She wasn't ashamed of who she was. I liked that about her. I liked how she lit up any room she entered. When she smiled, it was like the sun shone brighter. I felt like the luckiest man in the world to have caught her attention. We courted for a few good years before getting married. I wanted to save up money to be able to offer her a decent life. I kept working at Mr. Sterling's shop, doing overtime whenever I could. Every cent that was left over, I put into an old tin cookie jar I hid under my bed. Gloria worked, too. She was a seamstress, making clothes for the women in town. She had skilled hands, making beautiful embroidery that everyone praised. On Sundays, when I wasn't working, we would walk through the town square, grab a soda pop, and talk about the future. She said she wanted a house with a big yard to plant flowers and have a big oak tree. I said I wanted to own my own shop someday, to be my own boss. We dreamed together, planned together, and I was absolutely certain that this woman was the right person to spend the rest of my life with. The proposal was simple. I didn't have money for a fancy ring or anything elegant, but I took a silver wedding band I had the local jeweler make. I knelt in her living room in front of her parents and asked, "Gloria, will you be my wife?" She started crying, that happy cry, and said yes. Her mother cried too. Even her daddy, who was so serious, got tears in his eyes. We got married in a simple ceremony at the church. She was beautiful in white, with a dress she had sewn herself. I wore a borrowed suit, but I felt like a king. We had a modest reception in the church fellowship hall with cake, light snacks, and punch. We had a local blues band. Everyone danced, laughed, and ate well. It was a happy day. One of those you keep in your heart forever. We rented a small house to start our life. 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, and a little backyard. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Gloria sewed at home to help with expenses, and I stayed at the shop. Life wasn't easy. Money was always tight, but we managed. We bought things on credit, paid when we could. Everyone in town knew us. They knew we were honest people, that we didn't owe money out of ill will. In the first years of marriage, everything was good. We got along, we talked about everything, we laughed together. Gloria cooked deliciously, homemade mac and cheese, smoked ribs, hot biscuits for breakfast. I'd come home dirty with grease, tired from work, but she always greeted me with a smile, dinner ready, and a kind word. Later, the children arrived. First the girl, then the boy. The house got smaller, noisier, but also more full of life. I worked even more to keep up with the expenses. I took jobs on the weekends, fixing whatever came up. Gloria cared for the children and kept sewing when she could. We were a family, a team. At least that's what I thought. As the years went by, I finally managed to open my own shop. It was in a rented garage, small, but it was mine. I put up a sign out front, Thorn Auto Repair, honest service. And it was true. I did my work with honesty. I charged fair prices. I didn't cheat anyone. Customers started coming. The shop slowly grew. We managed to stop renting and buy a bigger house with the yard Gloria had always wanted. I thought I had achieved everything a man could want. Honest work, my own house, a good family, respect in the community. Gloria seemed happy too. She took care of the house, the children, and kept sewing for clients. We had a routine, an established life. We ate dinner together every night, watched the nightly news, and talked about the day. On Sundays, we still went to church and had family dinner. But trusting people too much, thinking everyone thinks the same way you do, that's where I went wrong. I looked at Gloria and saw the mother of my children, my partner through all the years, the woman who had built a life with me. It never crossed my mind that she might be dissatisfied with something. I never imagined she might be looking elsewhere at another man. There were times she commented that I worked so much, that I was always tired, that we didn't have time for each other like before. But I thought that was just how it was, that marriage was work, responsibility, building a future for the kids. I thought romance was for the movies, that companionship was what was truly important. How wrong I was. I trusted her blindly. When she said she was going to a friend's house to sew, I believed her. When she said she was running errands and took hours, I didn't ask questions. When she started spending more time on her cell phone, smiling at the screen, I thought it was just social media, one of those modern things I didn't quite understand. I never suspected, not for a second. And you know what the worst part is? There were people who knew. There were people who saw and didn't tell me. After everything exploded, they came to me and said, "Oh, Elijah, we suspected, but we weren't sure. So-and-so saw her going into a suspicious place, but didn't want to get involved. Someone else commented, but nobody wanted to believe it. But when it mattered, when I could have done something sooner, nobody had the courage to come to me and tell me the truth. So I lived for years, working, taking care of the family, trusting, believing everything was fine. Meanwhile, right under my nose, something was happening, something that would destroy everything I had built. But I was too innocent, too trusting, too blind to realize it. Until that day, that cursed day, when a simple message on her phone opened my eyes, once and for all. And when my eyes opened, it wasn't just the truth I saw. It was my own naivete staring back at me, mocking me, calling me a fool. The years kept passing, and life seemed to find its rhythm. The children grew up, went to college. Each followed their own path. My daughter married a good man and moved to another state. My son got a job at an accounting firm. They both moved out of the house. Suddenly, Gloria and I were alone again, after so long raising kids, paying tuition, worrying about their future. The shop was doing well. Thank God. I had 2 helpers working with me. The clientele was good, and money came in well every month. I even managed to buy a used pickup truck to make my life easier, because before I used to bike to work, rain or shine. Gloria continued to sew, but less often, only for a few special clients. She said she wanted to enjoy life more, have more free time. I retired from the shop when I got older, my back complaining from so many hours bent over working on engines. I handed the business over to one of my helpers, Chuck, who was hard-working and honest, just as I had taught him. I was left with my pension and some money I had saved. It wasn't much, but it was enough to live comfortably. It was around that time that we met Randall Caldwell. He and his wife Sarah had bought the house next door. He was a butcher, a friendly, talkative man, the type who makes friends easily with everyone. His wife was quieter, a little reserved, but she was good people too. We became close neighbors, the kind who chat on the front porch and have coffee at each other's houses. Randall was always coming over to borrow something, a tool, a hammer, a screwdriver. I lent it to him without any problem. After all, a good neighbor is one who helps when needed, right? He was kind, too. He always brought over a good cut of meat from his butcher shop. He said it was a gift to thank me for the good neighborliness. Gloria got all happy. She said it was a blessing to have such good neighbors. There was a period when I started traveling more to my brother's land. He had bought a piece of property out in the country. He raised cattle and planted corn. He was always inviting me to spend a few days out there, to help with a few things, to have a beer and talk about life. I would go and stay a week, maybe 10 days. I always thought everything was fine, that Gloria was staying home quietly, taking care of her things. She never complained about my trips. On the contrary, she even seemed to cheer up when I told her I was going to the farm. Go, you need to clear your head. Talk to your brother, she would say. I'll stay here peacefully. I have things to do. I thought that was normal. I thought she was being understanding, giving me space, but the truth is, she was happy to see me go. I started noticing a few strange things, but at the time, I didn't give them importance. Gloria had bought new clothes. She was putting on makeup, even wearing lipstick to go to the grocery store. I even commented, "Well, old lady, are you getting vain now?" She laughed and said a woman has to take care of herself at any age. I agreed. I even thought it was nice that she was taking care of herself. She had also bought a new cell phone, one of those modern ones, full of apps. I didn't understand. She lived on that device, sending messages, laughing to herself. When I asked her who she was talking to, she said it was her friends, her clients, our daughter. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? There was one day I came back early from the farm. The trip had been faster than expected. When I walked in, Gloria was in the bedroom, frantically making the bed, looking all nervous. "You're back already?" she said with a startle in her voice. It seemed strange, but then she made up an excuse. She said she had slept late and was embarrassed that I caught her still cleaning up. I laughed and gave her a kiss. I went to shower. Randall also became more present in our life. He appeared often, brought meat, stayed chatting on the porch, had a beer with me in the late afternoon. Gloria would make snacks, sit with us, and laugh at his jokes. I thought it was great to have a friend nearby, someone to talk to distract myself. It never crossed my mind that there was anything wrong with any of it. Sarah, his wife, was good people too, but she was always complaining that Randall worked too much at the butcher shop, that he came home late, that he was always tired. Gloria would console her. She'd say that men are just like that you have to give them a break. The two of them became friends. They'd have coffee together and talk about things. Everything seemed normal, a quiet, friendly neighborhood. But there was one time I came home unexpectedly and saw Randall leaving my house through the back gate. When I asked Gloria what he was doing here, she said he had come to drop off some meat I had ordered, that he had come in the front, but left out the back because the front gate was closed. The explanation made sense. I didn't ask any more questions. But now looking back, I see how obvious it was, how blind I was. My life routine was simple. I got up early, had my coffee and biscuits with strong black coffee, read the newspaper, watched television, and went to run errands in town. I came back for lunch. Gloria always had food ready. The house was always clean, everything in its place. At night, we watched the nightly news, talked a little, and went to sleep. On weekends, we visited the children, or they came to visit us. A common life, without excitement, without strong emotions. I was satisfied with that. I thought I had reached the good stage of life, the one where you can rest a little, enjoy what you built, and watch the grandkids grow. I never imagined that while I was there, peaceful, trusting, happy with my little quiet life, something was happening right under my nose. Something that would destroy all the peace I valued so much. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and Gloria wasn't in bed. I went looking for her and found her in the living room, on her cell phone, with that bluish light illuminating her face. When she saw me, she was startled and quickly put the phone away. "I couldn't sleep. I came out to get some water," she said. I went back to bed, turned over, and fell back asleep. I didn't suspect a thing. I was that naive. Months passed, and I continued in my small life, ignoring the signs, not questioning the strange things, not opening my eyes. Too much trust, too much kindness, too much innocence. Everything my mother had warned me about when I was a boy, everything I had ignored my whole life, was about to bite me hard. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter how long you live with a person. It doesn't matter how many years you share the same bed, the same house, the same life. Sometimes the person you think you know better than anyone is precisely the one hiding the biggest secrets. And when those secrets come out, they don't come alone. They bring pain, disappointment, and a rage you never knew you were capable of feeling. But I still didn't know any of that. I was still living in my bubble of naivete, thinking everything was fine, that my marriage was solid, that my wife was faithful, until one ordinary night, in a completely normal situation, everything suddenly collapsed. And when it collapsed, I had to make a decision: explode with rage or act with cold calculation. And the decision I made in that moment would define the rest of my story. The night that changed everything started like any other. It was a typical rainy Thursday. The sky was heavy, and the rain was constant but light. I had spent the day running errands in town, paying bills, talking to Chuck about the shop. I got home in the late afternoon, tired, wanting a hot shower and a quiet dinner. Gloria was in the kitchen making supper. The smell of chicken stew with potatoes filled the house when I opened the door. "It's almost ready," she shouted from the kitchen. "Go take a shower. The table will be set when you come out." I was grateful to have a wife who took such good care of me, or so I thought. When I got out of the shower, the table was set. Rice, beans, the chicken, and potatoes, a little lettuce, and tomato salad. Simple, good. We sat down to eat, talking about things. She commented that our daughter had called, that our grandson had a little cold, but nothing serious. I talked about the activity in town, about the price of things that kept going up, just routine, old couple talk, with no emotion whatsoever. After dinner, she went to wash the dishes, and I went to the living room to watch the nightly news. I sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and stayed there, watching the day's headlines. A little later, Gloria appeared, drying her hands on a dish towel. "I'm going to take a bath," she said, and she left her cell phone on the coffee table near me as she went to the bedroom. I was there, watching television, when the phone lit up with the notification. It wasn't my habit to look at other people's phones, not even hers, but the screen was right in front of me, illuminated, impossible not to see. And what I saw on that screen chilled the blood in my veins. It was a message, and it read, "I miss your touch, my love." The contact name? Dr. Miller's office. My heart dropped. I felt that awful sensation in my chest, that tightness, that heat rising in my face. Dr. Miller's office? What kind of doctor's office sends messages saying, "I miss your touch, my love"? I grabbed the phone with a trembling hand. The message was there, clear, leaving no doubt, and it wasn't the first. There were other previous messages, but she had deleted most of them. Only that last one remained. I heard the shower running in the bathroom. Gloria was bathing. It would take her at least 15 minutes. My head started spinning. I thought 1,000 things at once. I thought about walking into the bathroom and throwing the phone in her face. I thought about screaming, about breaking everything, about making a scene. But I didn't do any of that. Something inside me changed in that moment. A coldness I had never felt before took over my body. I looked at that message and thought, no, I'm not going to explode. I'm not going to make a scene. I'm going to handle this differently. I'm going to find out who that scumbag is, and I'm going to make both of them pay in a way they will never forget. I sat there with the phone in my hand, my heart pounding, my mind working fast. I thought about replying to that message. I thought about pretending to be her, and that's what I did. With trembling fingers, but with a cold determination, I typed, "Come over tonight at 8 p.m. My husband went to his brother's farm. I sent the message and stared at the screen, waiting. Not even 2 minutes passed before the reply came. "I'll bring the Merlot." My stomach churned. Merlot, my love, all that intimacy. How many times had this happened? How many times had that man come into my house, had wine with my wife, slept in my bed while I was away, trusting, working, living my idiotic little life? I deleted the messages I had sent. I left the phone exactly where it was before, on the coffee table. I stood up, went to the kitchen, and got a glass of water. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clear. I had to act fast. I had to think carefully. I had only a few hours to set my trap. When Gloria came out of the bathroom, all dressed up, smelling nice, wearing her clean robe, I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV as if nothing had happened. She grabbed her phone, looked at the screen, and I saw her face change. She went pale, swallowed hard, but recovered quickly. "Everything okay?" I asked, looking at her with the most innocent expression in the world. "Everything's fine," she replied, forcing a smile. Why wouldn't it be? I waited for her to sit down on the couch next to me. I let a few minutes pass, watching the game show she liked. And then, in the middle of the show, casually I said, "Oh, honey, I forgot to tell you. My brother called today. He wants me to go to the farm early tomorrow to help with some things. I'll have to stay the night there. I'll be back the day after." I watched her face. Her eyes lit up. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. "Oh, really? How long will you be gone?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Just one night. I'll leave first thing in the morning and be back the day after tomorrow." She nodded, pretending to be concerned. "All right, be careful on the road." But I swear, I saw a little smile at the corner of her mouth. That night, lying next to her in bed, I didn't sleep a wink. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing beside me, thinking about everything. 35 years of marriage. 35 years I believed in this woman. I trusted, respected, and cared for her. And she was betraying me, lying, using my trust against me. The rage came in waves, but I held it in. I couldn't show it. I had to stay calm, act cold, because I was going to make those two pay. But I was going to do it my way. It wasn't going to be with violence. It wasn't going to be with a public scandal. It was going to be with the truth. It was going to be by showing them that I knew, that I always knew, that I planned the whole thing. The next morning, I got up early, had coffee, packed a duffel bag with some clothes, and went through the whole show. Gloria was strangely affectionate. She made me extra coffee. She asked if I was taking lunch for the road, if I had money. Too much care, too much affection, all fake, all a lie. Are you sure you'll be okay here alone? I asked at the door, before leaving. She smiled. Of course I will. I'm going to use the time to organize a few things, do some cleaning. Go on, don't worry. I kissed her on the forehead, grabbed my bag, got in the truck, and pretended to leave. I drove to the corner, turned around the block, and parked the truck 3 houses down from ours, on the opposite side of the street, where she couldn't see it. I turned off the engine and stayed there, waiting, watching. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I had the whole day ahead of me, and at 8 o'clock that night, I was going to find out who owned that number, who the man was who had the nerve to walk into my house, sleep in my bed, and betray my trust. The hours passed slowly. I stayed there, in the truck, eating the crackers I had brought, drinking water, thinking. I thought about my whole life. I thought about how much of a fool I had been. I thought about how many times she had lied to my face, and I had believed her. I thought about all those trips to the farm, all those times I had left the house, trusting, leaving my wife alone, thinking everything was fine. When the clock struck 7 o'clock in the evening, I got out of the truck, walked down the street, circled around behind the houses, and entered my yard through the back gate that led to the alley. I entered silently, like a thief in my own house. I went straight to the utility room, that small room in the back where I kept my tools. I left the door slightly ajar, just a crack, enough to see the living room. 8 o'clock in the evening. My heart was racing, but my mind was cold. I heard the doorbell ring. I heard Gloria's footsteps going toward the door. I heard the door open, and then I heard the voice. A voice I knew very well. A voice that made me both boil and freeze at the same time. It was Randall Caldwell, my neighbor, my friend, the man I had welcomed into my house, shared beers with, and lent tools to. The scumbag I had treated like a brother was now walking into my living room with a bottle of Merlot in his hand and flowers for my wife. I saw everything through the crack in the door. Randall walked into my living room with the confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times. He was dressed neatly, hair combed, clean shirt, smelling of cologne. He carried a bottle of red wine and a bouquet of red roses. Red roses for my wife, in my house, with my money paying the electricity that lit that room. Gloria closed the door and threw herself on him. I saw it. With my own eyes, I saw my wife throw herself on that man and kiss him on the mouth with desire, the way she hadn't kissed me in years. I felt a pain in my chest, so strong, I thought I was going to have a heart attack right there. But I took a deep breath, clenched my fists, and kept watching. I thought you weren't going to answer my message, he said, running his hand around her waist. I was worried you had changed your mind. She laughed, that laugh I knew so well, and said, How could I change my mind? I was dying to see you. This old man never leaves the house. Now that he's gone, I wasn't going to waste the chance. This old man. She had called me this old man, as if I were a hindrance, an obstacle in her life. 35 years thrown away with 2 words. I felt the rage rise in my throat, but I held back. It wasn't time yet. They went to the living room, sat on the couch. Randall opened the wine, poured 2 glasses, and they toasted. "To our love," he said. "To our love that no one can destroy," she replied. They drank the wine, laughed, and kissed again. I was standing there, just a few feet away from them, watching everything, feeling my world crumble piece by piece. I waited a few more minutes. I wanted them to get good and comfortable, relaxed, completely sure they were alone. I wanted the shock to be maximum when I appeared. And when I felt the time was right, I took one last deep breath. I opened the utility room door and walked into the living room. "Good evening, Randall," I said with the calmest voice I could manage. The silence that fell in that room was deafening. Gloria jumped off the couch, knocking over her wine glass, which shattered on the floor. Her face turned white as a sheet, her eyes wide with fear, her mouth open, unable to say anything. Randall was paralyzed, the wine glass still in his hand, looking at me as if he were seeing a ghost. Elijah, he stammered. I just came. I came to bring meat from the butcher shop." His voice came out shaky, weak, pathetic. I almost felt like laughing at the ridiculous excuse. "Meat from the butcher shop," I repeated slowly, savoring every word. "Meat with wine and flowers. What special delivery service you have, Randall? Must be VIP service, right?" Gloria started crying. "Elijah, I can explain. It's not what you think." She came towards me, hands outstretched, desperate. I took a step back. "Don't touch me," I said. And for the first time, she must have seen something different in my eyes, because she stopped dead in her tracks. Randall tried to get up to leave. I darted to the front door and locked it, putting the key in my pocket. "Nobody is leaving here until I know everything," I said, and my voice was cold, controlled, terrifying, even to myself. "You two are going to sit down and tell me this whole story. How many years? How many years?" "What? How many years what?" Gloria asked, still trying to play dumb. I grabbed her cell phone from the coffee table, unlocked it. I knew the password. She had never hidden it from me, and I showed them the messages. "How many years have you been betraying me? How many times has this scumbag been in my house? How many times did you sleep in my bed?" Her crying intensified. Randall was sweating cold, looking toward the door, calculating if he could get past me and escape, but he knew he couldn't. I was between him and the exit, and although I was older, I was still strong. I still had the arms of a man who had worked his whole life with heavy tools. "Talk!" I shouted. And it was the first time I had raised my voice. "Talk, before I completely lose my mind." Gloria flinched, sat down on the floor, and hugged her knees. 3 years, she whispered. "We've been seeing each other. For 3 years. 3 years. 3 entire years of lies." I did the math quickly in my head. 3 years ago was when I started going to my brother's farm more often. 3 years ago was when she started fixing herself up more, buying new clothes. 3 years of betrayal. 3 years of being made a fool of. 3 years of sleeping next to a woman who was thinking about someone else. "And you," I turned to Randall, "does your wife know? Does Sarah know that you spend all day at the butcher shop and all night at the neighbor's house, sleeping with another man's wife?" He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the floor. "Answer me," I yelled again. She doesn't know anything, he mumbled. Please, Elijah, don't tell her. For the love of God, she doesn't deserve to suffer through this. The hypocrisy of that man disgusted me. She doesn't deserve to suffer. But I do, I asked. Me, who worked my whole life, who built this house, who trusted you both. I deserve to be cheated on inside my own house? It was in that moment that I had the idea. The best idea I've ever had in my life. I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket, looked for Sarah's number in my contacts. I had it because she sometimes called me when she needed something, and Randall wasn't home. And I dialed. Hello, Sarah, this is Elijah, your neighbor. Can you come over to my house right now? It's urgent. Your husband is here and needs you badly. I hung up before she could ask anything. Randall went white. You didn't do that, he said, his voice failing him. You didn't call my wife. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the bitter smile of someone who had just found the perfect revenge. Yes, I did, and she'll be here in 10 minutes. I hope you have a good explanation for her. Those 10 minutes were the longest of my life. Gloria kept crying on the floor, begging for forgiveness, saying it had been a mistake, that she didn't want to hurt me. Randall was sitting on the couch, head in his hands, shaking. I stood there with my arms crossed, waiting. The doorbell rang. I went to the door and opened it. Sarah was standing there, worried. What happened, Elijah? Is Randall all right? I stepped aside to let her in. Come in, Sarah. Your husband is fine. Very fine. He was just here, having some wine with my wife. She walked us into the living room and saw the whole scene. Randall sitting on the couch with the half-empty bottle of Merlot on the table, the glasses, the bouquet of roses, Gloria on the floor, disheveled, crying, the pieces of the broken glass still scattered on the floor. Sarah looked at her husband, then at me, then at Gloria. It took her brain a few seconds to process what she was seeing. Randall, she said slowly, what are you doing here? Her voice trembled. He didn't answer. He couldn't look her in the eye. It was Gloria who spoke through her sobs. Sarah, I'm so sorry. We didn't want you to find out like this. And it was then that Sarah's world also crumbled. I saw her face change. I saw the pain take over her. Saw the tears begin to fall. How long? She asked, and her voice cracked. How long have you been doing this behind my back? Randall remained silent. 3 years, I answered for him. 3 years they've been seeing each other here in my house when I traveled, and probably in other places too. Sarah leaned against the wall. I thought she was going to faint, but she didn't. She looked at her husband with a hatred I had never seen in that sweet, quiet woman. Get up from there, right now, and come with me, she said with impressive firmness. You're going to get your things, and you are leaving my house today. I never want to see you again in my life. Randall tried to say something, but she raised her hand. Don't even try. Don't try to give me excuses. 3 years, Randall? 3 years you looked me in the eye every day and lied to me. 3 years you made a fool out of me. She turned to Gloria. And you. I thought you were my friend. You sat in my house drinking coffee, comforting me when I complained that my husband worked too much. Now I know where he was when he said he was working. I opened the front door. You can leave now, I said. You two get out of my house and never come back. Randall stood up, walked past me without looking me in the eye, and stepped out onto the street with Sarah right behind him. I heard her shouting at him in the street. I heard the neighbors opening their windows to see what was happening. Gloria was still on the living room floor. "Elijah, please," she pleaded. "Forgive me. It was a mistake. I love you. We can start over, please. For our children. For our grandchildren." I looked at that woman I had loved my whole life and felt nothing. No rage, no love, no pity. Just an enormous emptiness. "You threw 35 years away?" I said slowly. 35 years of marriage, of trust, of building a life. You threw everything away for a married butcher. And you know what the worst part is? You did it in my bed, in my house, with my money paying the light bill. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? She didn't answer. She just cried harder. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to see the attorney to file for divorce," I continued. "You can stay in the house for now until we resolve things legally, but I'm going to sleep in the guest room. And I don't want to exchange another word with you that isn't about the separation." I turned and walked to the guest room, leaving her there, crying alone in the living room, surrounded by the pieces of the shattered wine glass and the pieces of the marriage she herself had destroyed. The days that followed that night were the hardest of my life. I slept in the guest room. I got up early. I left the house before Gloria woke up. I only came back at night. We didn't talk. We didn't look at each other. The house, which was once full of life, conversation, and the smell of good food, became a silent cemetery, where two strangers shared the same roof without seeing each other. That silence was worse than any shouting. It was a heavy silence, loaded with everything that could no longer be said. I'd pass her in the kitchen and look away. She tried to talk to me sometimes, tried to start a conversation, but I cut her off instantly. There was nothing left to talk about, nothing left to hear. The neighbors all found out within hours. A small town is like that. News travels faster than a bird. The next day, everyone was already commenting at the bakery, at the grocery store, in the park. I heard the whispers when I walked down the street. I saw people look away, pretending they didn't see me. Some came to greet me with that look of pity, patting me on the shoulder without knowing what to say. Others were entertained, laughing quietly, making jokes they thought I couldn't hear. But most were just happy to have new gossip to talk about over the weekend. The worst was running into acquaintances who didn't know whether to greet me or pretend they didn't see me. Mr. Gerald, the attorney, stopped me in the street. "Elijah, I heard what happened. What a tough situation, brother. If you need to talk, I'm here." I thanked him, but I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to disappear, turn to dust, vanish from that town where everyone knew about my humiliation. I went to see the attorney, Mr. Gerald, first thing Monday morning. He was a serious man in his mid-50s who had an office right off the town square. I walked into his office with trembling leg and a heavy heart. It felt strange to be there filing for divorce after 35 years of marriage. It seemed unreal, as if it were happening to someone else. I told him everything straight up, without sugarcoating. He listened in silence, taking notes in a notebook. When I finished, he took off his glasses, ran his hand over his face, and said, "Elijah, I've been working in this field for 30 years. I've seen many cases of infidelity, many marriages ending, but I never stop being surprised by people's capacity to hurt the very ones who trust them the most. I am very sorry for what you are going through." The divorce was quick, quicker than I imagined. Gloria didn't fight anything. She accepted all the conditions I proposed. She didn't ask for alimony. She didn't fight for anything. I think the guilt weighed so heavily on her that she didn't have the courage to demand anything. Or maybe she just wanted to end it. Get rid of me so she could live her new life with the butcher. We divided the assets, half for each, as the law commands. She kept the house. I didn't want to step foot in that place again. I didn't want to sleep in that bed where she had betrayed me. I took my share of the money from the sale of the shop. I took my tools, my clothes, and some furniture. That was mine from before we married, and I left. It was liberating to leave that house, to leave behind all those memories that were now stained, poisoned by betrayal. While I was rebuilding my life, Randall's was crumbling, brick by brick. Sarah truly kicked him out of the house that same night. She didn't even give him time to properly pack his things. He had to rent a miserable little room above a corner store near the butcher shop. A small room, no windows, with a shared bathroom from a homeowner to a room renter. Business at the butcher shop plummeted badly. Half the town was on Sarah's side and stopped buying meat from him. The women, especially, started a kind of silent boycott. They preferred to buy at the supermarket, even if it was more expensive, than give money to that man. The other half who went only went to ask indiscreet questions, to look at him with judgmental eyes, to fuel the gossip. I rented a small but cozy apartment on the other side of town. Second floor of a modest walk-up building, 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, a little balcony that faced the street. I started building my life anew, slowly, one piece at a time. I bought simple furniture at the used goods store. I arranged things my way, without having to ask if I could or couldn't. It was strange living alone, after so many years sharing space with someone. Strange, but it was also good. I woke up when I wanted. I ate what I craved, watched the TV channel I liked. I didn't have to give explanations. I didn't have to distrust every word. I didn't have to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. It was just me, my clear conscience, and my chosen silence. The children got very angry with their mother when they found out everything. My daughter cried a lot. She said she couldn't believe her mother was capable of that she had lost all respect for her. My son was so angry that he went months without speaking to Gloria. He didn't answer calls. He didn't reply to messages. They supported me. They came to visit me at the new apartment, helped me organize things, and took me out to eat. Seeing that at least the children were on my side relieved some of the weight on my chest. And you know what happened? 1 month after that fateful night, Randall and Gloria made their relationship public. They started walking around town together hand in hand, going to the movies, getting soda pop in the park, without shame, without considering what people would think, without respecting the mourning of the destroyed marriages. Gloria told anyone who would listen that it had been true love, that they had tried to resist but couldn't, that the heart rules over reason, that love isn't a choice. True love. What a joke. True love isn't built on lies and betrayal. True love doesn't hide in a borrowed room while the spouses are away. But the story didn't end there, because betrayal is like rust. It corrodes everything it touches. It spreads. It contaminates. It destroys from within. 4 months after Randall and Gloria started living together, he had moved into my old house, sleeping in my old bed. The bomb exploded again. Randall was seen leaving a cheap roadside motel with another woman, a much younger woman with bright red hair, who worked the register at the grocery store. Someone took a photo. There's always someone with a cell phone at the right moment. The photo circulated through the town's text messages and reached Gloria's eyes within hours. It was the same pain she had caused me, but now it was knocking on her door. And you know how she reacted? She came to my apartment one Sunday morning, knocking desperately, her eyes swollen from crying so much, saying she had been betrayed, that she couldn't believe Randall was capable of doing that to her, that she had left everything for him. I opened the door, looked at that shattered woman, and felt nothing. No rage, no satisfaction, no pity, just emptiness. And what did you expect? I asked, standing in the doorway, without inviting her in. Did you expect a man who betrayed his wife with you to be faithful to you? Did you expect a man who walked into my house behind my back, who lied to me for 3 years, who slept in my bed while I was trusting him to be honest with you? She had no answer. She just cried, begging for a shoulder to cry on, begging for comfort, asking me to understand her pain. Do you know how much it hurts to be betrayed, Elijah? She said through sobs. Do you know how much it hurts? Please help me. I looked her in the eyes and said, I know how much it hurts, Gloria. I know very well. But the difference is, I didn't deserve it. You do. And I closed the door in her face. Randall and Gloria broke up right there. She was left alone, living in that big house, full of bitter memories, without a husband, without a lover, without dignity. She tried to go back to sewing, but her old clients didn't want her anymore. The reputation of being a home wrecker had spread like wildfire through dry grass. And small-town women don't forgive those things easily. I, on the other hand, was finding a peace I hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. I woke up early, without an alarm clock, drank my coffee on the balcony, watching the sunrise, and read my newspaper in peace, without rush. I went to the park to chat with friends. I played dominoes under the trees. I had a cold beer in the late afternoon. Life was simple again, honest again, clean again. It was one of those quiet afternoons in the park that I met Florence. An elegant woman, well-maintained white hair, pulled back in a bun, kind brown eyes, a sincere smile that lit up her whole face. She was sitting on a bench under a tree, reading a book with a blue cover. I sat on the bench next to her. We started talking about things, the weather, the park, the birds. I discovered she had lost her husband to cancer, that it had been a long, happy marriage, that she had 3 grown children, lovely grandchildren, who visited her every week. She, too, was rebuilding her life alone, learning to just be herself again, after so many years of being half of a couple. And we connected over that pain of starting over, that feeling of rediscovering who we were without having someone next to us. We started meeting more often. We talked for hours about everything, about life, about losses, about our children, about starting over. She was different from Gloria in absolutely every way. She was transparent, honest, spoke her mind directly, had no hidden agenda, didn't lie, didn't hide anything. With her, I could be myself, without the fear of being made a fool of again. Slowly, without rush, without anxiety, we grew closer. It wasn't that telenovela kind of love, the kind that makes your heart race and your head spin. It was a quiet, mature love, the love of people who have lived a lot, suffered a lot, and know the true value of honesty. A love built on real trust, earned day by day, not that blind, idiotic trust I had before. Today, when I look back, I see that terrible night was actually a liberation disguised as tragedy. It freed me from a comfortable lie, from a false sense of security, from a marriage that was already rotten inside, but I was too blind to smell it. It hurt. It hurt like nothing had ever hurt in my life. But the pain passed, just as everything passes. And what remained was a lesson I will carry until the end of my days. Today, sitting here on the balcony of my apartment, with Florence next to me, drinking coffee and talking about the grandchildren, I feel at peace, a true peace, the kind that comes from within, that doesn't depend on anyone else. It's the peace of someone with a clean conscience, who owes nothing to anyone, who has no secrets hidden under the pillow. Gloria still lives alone in that house. The children visit her occasionally, more out of obligation than desire. Randall went back to Sarah on his knees, begging for forgiveness. But she wanted nothing to do with him. She rebuilt her life. She is also dating a widower who treats her with the respect she always deserved. The lesson I learned from all this is simple, but painful. Trust is not a blank check we give to people. Trust is built every day, confirmed by actions, proven by transparency. I trusted blindly, and I paid the price. But today I trust again, only differently, with my eyes wide open. 35 years of marriage. She threw everything away for a butcher. I replied to that message pretending to be her, and the lover came running like a dog chasing a bone. The look on Gloria's face when she saw me in the living room is one I will never forget. White as candle wax, eyes wide with pure terror. I didn't need to slap her. I didn't need to shout more than necessary. The truth, exposed in front of everyone, hurt more than any physical blow. Randall lost his wife, lost respect, lost his clientele. Gloria lost me, and she lost her lover shortly after. In the end, they were together for 4 miserable months until the betrayal repeated itself. Because betrayal doesn't turn into love. Betrayal turns into punishment. It turns into karma. It turns into the hell that each person builds with their own hands. Today, I sleep peacefully, with a clean conscience and a light heart. She sleeps alone with a heavy conscience and the weight of what she did. And I learned that starting over is not a disgrace. A disgrace is living a lie, pretending everything is fine, accepting that you're being made a fool of. Starting over is bravery. It's looking forward and saying, I deserve something better. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.